I'm Kim.
I'm Brad.
We're 626 Ohana, California, and today we're going to be talking about our experience with cancellations and travel companies.
Yeah, so like many of you out there, we've had a lot of cancellations, trips that have been canceled on us, and things that we've had to cancel. So we're going to tell you our experience with the companies that we had to deal with the cancellations. So please like, subscribe, and follow along our Ohana.
And we're also going to give you tips of how we actually got more money back than what was being offered.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, so stay tuned to all this.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start out with a little information that's ended up being our magic words with airlines. And that is using U.S. Department of Transportation's cancellation policy for canceled flights on the airlines.
So I'm going to read this directly from the Department of Transportation's website. And here it is am I entitled to a refund? The following situations, passengers are entitled to a refund of the ticket price and or associated fees. Canceled flight. A passenger is entitled to a refund if the airline canceled a flight, regardless of the reason, and the passenger chooses not to travel.
Okay, so over and over, I am going to refer to that policy.
So you'll see this come up because we did have a couple of flights that were canceled, but they're really weird, and there's some things that the airlines have tried to do. So
yeah, they're definitely trying to minimize the refunds at the moment.
Yeah. So we're going to start by ranking all the companies from the best customer service that we had to the worst.
And we're going to explain our situations and why we ranked them in this order. And it might help you guys choose maybe some tips on how to cancel your trips and make the most out of the refunds, or in the future, what companies you may or may not want to work with.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and start with, of course, Disney.
Disney. We had our Disney Cruise Line canceled, and that was really at the beginning of all this. So they were really easy. The worst part was waiting on hold, which that's no fault of anybody's. It's just busy.
Disney canceled a whole bunch of cruises at once, and they, to be fair, they were a little bit later in canceling the cruises, but they were trying to research all their options.
Right.
But once Kim got on the phone, an hour and a half?
Yeah, something like that.
It was fairly easy, and we chose to rebook at 125%, which was a pretty good deal for at the time.
So it's a future cruise credit that we were offered the 125% on, or we could cancel and outright get our money back. So we chose the 125% future cruise credit. And I'm going to link a video down below on some of the things you could buy on Disney Cruise using that credit and how far that'll really take you.
And also Disney gave you a choice of a full refund with no hassle.
Yes.
So that was really easy. They were really good customer service on it. So Disney, by far, was easy to work with.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the next company that was really easy to deal with, which was Hotwire.
Yeah. So Hotwire we booked before our cruise and after our cruise for the hotels. And they had like a deal of the day. And their policy stated because it was such a good deal, which I think it was only a third of the price for a really nice hotel, that there was a zero cancellation policy. Like they wouldn't refund you at all if you canceled. So right in the beginning of all this, I got an email saying that because of the pandemic, everything going on, they were going to refund. But they never really kind of went back on would they do it for the deals of the day. But right away they assured us that yes, they will. And so it was easy as logging in, going to my trip itinerary, and hitting cancel. And within a few days, I had the answer back that yes, they would cancel it, and I got the money back.
The only problem we had with Hotwire is that we had to cancel them different times apart because we had two different reservations. So we had the first cancellation for the first nights of our hotel before the cruise, and then a week and a half later.
Yeah, it would have been a week later because the Disney cruise was 7 nights.
And then we had to cancel our second one. So that was the only weird hiccup, but it seemed like it was incredibly easy, and they were really customer friendly towards everything that was going on.
I think it was going to take a month to get my money back, but it was going to give me my full money back. All I had to do was hit a button, write a quick little sentence, bam, it was off easy. So I was thankful.
So the next company we're going to talk about, they're not really a travel company, but what they are is our credit card that we use for travel. And it's been a great credit card for us. This is how we afford to go to Florida all the time. And our travel, we use our points from it.
So we used the Chase Visa Sapphire Reserve, and we used our reward points. If you guys want to know more about that and how we pay for our trips on the airline, please comment below and we'll do a video on it.
So what happened is that we got an email from Delta saying, hey, your flight
Yeah.
on your way back from where we're going from our cruise has been canceled.
But we could still get there.
But yeah. So Kim immediately called Chase and said, hey, we have a problem.
Our cruise was already canceled. Our return trip was already canceled. We could get there and do nothing, and it made no sense. And really, with all the travel guidelines restrictions, we didn't even know if we could get there or back home again. So it was really too much of a gamble to even attempt the trip.
Yeah, so she ended up talking to the agent, and originally they were only going to give us credit on Delta.
And that's for the flight there and the flight back. But then I used the magic words of the U.S. Department of Transportation, said that since the airline canceled the trip on their own, that for that we should be entitled to a cash refund. It took about 2-3 minutes of the Chase Sapphire Card Reward Center to type a few things and goes, oh, you're right. Okay, never mind. They immediately refunded our points, our reward points back, which I was happy with.
They gave us credit back on our points, and then also the cash for that segment that we paid because we didn't have enough points to pay for the full trip, back on that segment. But there was a hiccup.
They made us take, because part of it, they hadn't canceled the full trip, they had said we have to take that credit on the airline. Had I pushed and had I really known the whole policy of the U.S. Department of Transportation, that would have been incorrect. They should have given us the cash back.
Yeah, they should have given us a full refund. And this is a mistake that we made. And unfortunately, at the time, we were worried about our cruise. We were worried about the hotel rooms and the airlines. It's just everything hit at once. So it kind of got lost in the shuffle.
And let's be honest, I was bummed.
Yeah.
I was sad.
And another thing to be aware of is when they do offer you this credit, is you have to be aware of blackout dates and everything else with it, because you may not get that full value back of what you put into it.
And prices go up every year.
And we would much rather have the cash and the points back onto it. And unfortunately, we just missed the call on that. And
yeah, we dropped it. And we're doing this video because we don't want you guys to have that same experience, because to us, that credit, who knows what it means. We actually looked at another flight later on this summer, and we're realizing they're actually bumping up the prices of airlines and condensing them and making them really...
It's making it more difficult to travel and more expensive. And this
they're adding more stops.
This is something we'll get into a little bit farther down. So the next company we're going to be talking about is Delta. Our credit card talked to them and kind of gave them a little hard time. And unfortunately, it should have been just as simple as saying, yes, your trip was canceled. Here's everything back.
Well, okay, here's what the airlines are doing that's tricky. And that is, we will cancel initially like one half of your trip, but not the whole trip at once. So you're tempted to cancel it on their own. And then they're like, oh, well, but you're canceling it. So here's your credit for it. And they're trying not to give you that cash back. So it's a little sneaky.
And that's where the whole Department of Transportation, where it says it interrupts your travel as far as they cancel the flight.
It has to be a major, they're calling it.
Yeah. So they canceled the flight. They completely canceled one of our flights, and that would be a complete travel interruption. We didn't realize it at the time, so that's where our mistake came in.
But they're also saying it has to be over an hour change in your itinerary as well.
Yeah, so there's restrictions to it, so I really would encourage reading what this website says.
Yeah.
It's not 100% clear, but it is fairly clear on the cancellation policies. So the next company we're going to go to is Travelocity, and this is a mixed bag, and I don't know how to explain this the best way, but Kim will.
Dealing with Travelocity, they pulled some fast ones. I wasn't very happy with them. I probably will be using Hotwire more than Travelocity after this.
So we got an email saying, your flight has been changed. Good news, you're still going where you were going, but it's been changed. And we're like, wait, what?
Right.
So they sent us an email saying, well, we changed your itinerary, your leave date, and our leave time was 15 minutes later than when we were originally supposed to leave out of Los Angeles International, which is within the guidelines. Mm-hmm. But we had a direct flight to Orlando from LAX, and we had a little bit upgraded seating. And so we were perfectly happy with our flights, had our seats set, everything else, and they totally took that flight away and put us on a flight that would fly us from LAX to Dallas, Fort Worth, and then to Orlando, adding approximately another 2 hours onto our total travel time. So our normal travel time is about 4.5 hours. So we put us at 6.5 hours, which was unacceptable. We didn't know where our seats were going to be, anything.
And to be truthfully honest, we were already kind of thinking about we were going to be canceling anyways. We're a little unsure. I mean, probably the most nerve-wracking part of traveling right now to me is being on an airline.
Yeah. And the other thing is that we've been in situations before where they've done this on other airlines and actually put Hayden, when he was about 3 years old, off to a seat by a stranger by himself. Which, at the time,
we're okay because
about a break. Let them take care of it.
I guarantee you the person after about an hour with 3.5-year-old that was a complete stranger would have been begging one of us to switch seats.
But anyway,
Hayden was always a good baby. Let me just put that in there. Yeah. But still.
But anyways, it was a situation where we didn't want to be split up. We're a party of 4, and that we just did not know anything. Right. So we Kim ended up getting online chat with Travelocity.
Yeah. So I sat there, and the first thing that happened is I explained our situation and that we wanted to talk about getting our refund, and we didn't want to accept the terms that the airline had given us. So they immediately said, okay, this is outside my scope. I have to switch you over to somebody else. Okay, fine. No problem. I get it. And so we switched over to the other person, and I was talking to her, explaining our situation and saying, you know what, according to the U.S. Department of Transportation, we're entitled to a full refund. The woman that I was talking to came on the chat and said that, oh no, but they're waiting for you to accept the alternative. And I said, but wait. And she goes, they didn't really cancel the flight. I said, is there a plane leaving from LAX at this time going straight there with the same flight number? And she's like, no. I said, so therefore they canceled that flight. And it was radio silence after that. And I'm waiting for her to respond. I said, so how can we go about the next step? Well, I'm sitting there forever, and then I decide she's not responding. So I decided to finally get on a phone number and call somebody at Travelocity who was much nicer and easier to deal with. I later went back to go to the online and said, thank you for your help. But I got somebody on the phone instead. Well, come to find out, she hung up on me.
Well, we call it hung up.
Well, disconnected. Okay, but to me, that's the same thing as hanging up.
And this was after an hour and a half on with the online chat with her, total time. And Kim was waiting sometimes 20 minutes in between responses.
It was completely a mess.
And unfortunately, Travelocity does not publish their phone number very easily to find out. I actually had to look up the phone number to get to their customer service. And maybe it's our generation, a little bit different, that we would rather talk to somebody on the phone to get it organized than try to type because of this stuff happening.
Right, but even in the types, it took me like 20-25 minutes to get onto her, and then after that it took 15-20 minutes between each written response. I don't know if she was having multiple conversations at once. I don't know what was going on, but it was not what's the word I want to look for? Efficient. Yeah. It wasn't efficient. And I wasn't getting anywhere.
Yeah. So Kim ended up calling, and this is actually the different part of it is that Travelocity, when we actually talked to them on the phone,
they were better.
They were a lot better and a lot more understanding of what's going on and try to work the problem.
So my first thing is I would definitely recommend calling Travelocity. Don't waste your time with the chat.
Yeah, and Travelocity, to be fair, they got mine and Kim's tickets refunded fairly quick.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when we booked Hayden and my mother-in-law's tickets, and we got split up on our tickets, it's a kind of a complication. So they actually spelt Hayden's name wrong.
Right. So then they canceled it because it was in that first 24 hours when we got the email right away that we realized they misspelled Hayden's wrong. Kind of funny story is we spelled Hayden's name differently. Poor child, for the rest of his life, he'll probably go through this. Even his first passport we had to send back because they spelled it wrong. And
actually, every time we spelled it right, they changed the name, not spelling wrong, and we made sure they have spelled right. So,
anyways,
there's a little complex going on there with him.
Anyways, so when we had to cancel, it threw kind of a wrench into things.
Yeah, so it threw that wrench into it, and first they said, well, no, it was a rebooking. We said, no, it wasn't a rebooking, that they misspelled his name wrong. They canceled it and then put it back on. And so after some calls to supervisors,
they actually had to call out corporate over that one.
And they did get it fixed eventually, but this was another hour and a half on the phone. So Kim spent about a total of 3 hours with Travelocity, and this is going to lead us into our problem with American Airlines.
So out of 6 companies that we're reviewing, the worst by far was American Airlines.
And so we explained to you that they rebooked us on a different flight, different stops, different seats, and explained to you why we didn't want to do that. But there was more to this. with
Right.
American Airlines than meets the eyes. What American Airlines was kind of doing, it was kind of what, this is the reason with the DOT,
Department of Transportation.
their statement, it comes in really handy, is that Kim, again, we argued that they canceled the flight. The
Right.
flight
There
number-
wasn't. They were trying to say no, but they gave you an alternative.
And that's the 50 minutes in between. Say, oh, it's an alternative flight. It's a rescheduled flight.
Right.
And we argued, no, it isn't, because they took a direct flight away from Orlando with a different flight number, everything else.
And our seats that we paid more for, they were going to bump us down and not give us a difference in price.
Yeah. Actually, they were saying, oh, no, the flights cost more for this flight.
Right. So American is now going on and condensing down their flights, adding stops, and now charging more.
Yeah. And the thing is to be
And trying to tell you you're getting a better deal.
The thing about all this is to be aware of is definitely what the Department of Transportation says.
Right.
It is a little vague in some areas, especially with delays and how much longer.
Yes.
And also be aware of is that the airlines, if they cancel your flight or reschedule it for a different day, they are not responsible for the cost of your hotels or anything else for those lost days. So be aware
Or
of
if
that.
you get stuck somewhere and it adds days.
Yeah, and even if you get stuck somewhere, be aware of their airline policies for lodging and everything else, because they may not pay for your lodging for if you're stuck in a city.
Right. Right now things are tough. We understand the airlines are in a situation that it's not their fault. I think the way they're going about trying to cancel things or make alternatives and things like that are very sneaky.
Yeah, and so this has kind of led us down to the road that we want to just cancel our flights completely, because we didn't want to have that large connecting flight. They never said, and this is the other thing, our return trip about our flight on the route back.
It was still a nonstop flight, and we're understanding that it seems like every other airline is canceling nonstop flights. And I think it was a matter of time, but they didn't cancel both
Right away.
Yeah, I think it's to save face and to try to
I think this
to get
is the
away
way they're
from.
trying to keep money into the airline system by canceling, like Kim was saying with Delta, is trying to keep money into their system in one way or another.
Right.
So they don't lose that money, and we understand that airlines are under a tough situation right now.
Right. But it's not the way to get customers back.
Yeah, no, not at all. And, you know, quite frankly, it was kind of shady.
It was. And usually, actually, we fly American and Delta all whenever we go. Mostly. We've done United once in a while, but those are kind of the
Or
three
Alaskan.
we use. We're Alaskan, but Alaskan doesn't really go from LA to
Well, they do.
straight through.
They are, for our straight through flights, is usually American or Delta.
right.
But it just felt really shady what they're trying to pull. And unfortunately, and I did research when we got this notification trying to find flights back out of LAX direct to Orlando. And unfortunately, we only found one that hadn't been canceled that was that way.
Yeah. And that was
And
United.
That was United, but they were starting to cancel their direct flights before that.
So it's just kind of like they're pushing back those
Yeah.
dates.
So what we're thinking, they're going back to the what's called the spoken hub. So they'll fly you to one major airport, then out from there to the other one,
Right.
instead of having all these direct flights.
And we felt that there'd be more exposure going through another airplane, two separate sets of individuals flying, and we just felt that that was a bigger exposure than we were willing to risk.
Yeah. So we ended up totally canceling our flights, and we'll get into later of what we're doing with our trip to Walt Disney World. So stay tuned for that. So with that, I hope that gives you some ideas. The big words of the day is the Department of Transportation website. Please go back and read it. I will leave a link down below to it. And that will give you your rights as a passenger. They're very vague on some instances, but other instances they are very clear of what your rights are as a passenger.
And we looked at going into the future if we looked at another airline and such, and I would really look at each now airline's individual policies if you're booking new flights.
So with that, I think it's time for us to say goodbye and
Find your magic.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.